Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Doug Freilich from the Hall of Fame Enshrinement Festival. Doug, you started out volunteering.
Sure.
It would be easier to look around Canton and say, raise your hand if you do not work on the Hall of Fame Festival.
Yeah, it's a passion for folks in Stark County.
How many volunteers?
We have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4,500 volunteers. And it's, I've been involved with this now for 29 years. And this year in my role as general chairman, I'm able to see things not only from the chamber, but from the Hall of Fame side as well. And it amazes me that, what we do here in a town the size of Canton.
Yes.
What we're able to do, those 4,500 people who come together, all throughout the year, really. It's a year-round process. And, all ages, socioeconomic backgrounds, religions, all of those are put aside, and we come together as one team to put on the best celebration of excellence that I think there is anywhere.
Mm-hmm. That is so well said, and even inspiring to think, you know what? The people of the world can get along. You just need to all be working on the Hall of Fame together.
Maybe that's the key, yeah.
Let's just do that. Every town needs one of these kind of festivals that everyone can gather around and work together. What kinds of committees are we talking about? I'm sure there are committees that I'm not even aware of.
There are 32 total committees.
My goodness.
Each committee has a chairperson, has a vice chairperson, and some of them, like the fashion show and the Gold Jacket Dinner Committee and the parade committee, are more visible committees that are, host an event. But then there are people that work behind. We have security committee. There is staging committee who works at the Civic Center and the other events to build the stages and to build the facilities that are there. Hostess committee who serves as hostesses for the current class and their families when they come. Special services committee who kind of is a catch-all. They do a lot of different things throughout the weekend. So there are a lot of committees, not only the visible events, but a lot of people work behind the scenes to make what happens here happen every year.
Let's go to the round table. That's kind of like my new favorite part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Tell me about that event.
Round table, if people have never been to the round table, that's on Sunday, August 4th down at the Canton Civic Center. It's an opportunity to see the class up close, to get to know them, kind of on a personal level. The night before, they gave their enshrinement speech, so that's out of the way. All of those things are out of the way, and now they have a time to kind of relax a little bit, take a deep breath, and some of the it's unscripted. They don't know what's going to be asked, and some of the stories that you hear and some of the things that they talk about, some of them get very emotional when they talk about some of those things. A lot of it is humorous kind of stories they tell on each other and tell back and forth. So it's an event that if people have never been to the round table, that's kind of, I think, maybe the hidden gem of the Enshrinement Festival is the round table. It's a neat event.
I agree. And I think it's fun. Some of them almost seem so excited to meet each other. That's one of the, some of the younger enshrinees are going in with some of the older enshrinees that they watched as they were kids and that they were role models for. It's fun to see that.
They talk about that a lot, too, because, for a lot of them, when they're selected in February, they meet each other at the Super Bowl. And the day after the Super Bowl is they're fitted for their jacket and they're measured for their bust and their ring and those things. So they meet each other there. But then a lot of them talk about how close they have become to one another and how they've become almost like a little family by the time they get to August. And they talk about the fact that they forever will be known as, members of the class of 2019. So they'll have not only the connection of being a member of the Hall of Fame, but, that smaller connection of being a member of that class. Sometimes they've played against each other.
Right.
Like you mentioned, sometimes some of the younger ones grew up watching some of the senior candidates, who get in, playing the game. So they talk a lot about how close they've become as a group, by the time they're here, in August.
Yeah. How much interaction do you get to have with the new enshrinees and getting to know them?
It depends on, for volunteers, it depends on what committee you're on. Some of the committees you're more, in closer contact with the enshrinees. I have an opportunity to meet the current class at a couple of the events. And it's an honor to be able to welcome them to Canton and, on behalf of the volunteers that we have to welcome them here.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that whole welcoming idea. We are a host city for people coming from all over the country, the world. You notice the traffic increases a little bit as you're driving around town from here to there.
Inconvenience.
A little bit. But tell us how we ought to behave as we are welcoming people to our home here.
I think if we think about it, and I talk about this a lot when I have an opportunity to talk to people, I think if we think about it as, we have a privilege here that nowhere else in the country has. We welcome the current class into the Hall of Fame. We welcome the Gold Jackets back. We welcome, an estimated 700,000 people who come to our town each year for the Enshrinement Festival.
Say that again. I don't want that to go just
They estimate
cracks.
about 700,000 people come every year for involved in the different festivities that we have. So if we think about it, I think as a privilege to be able to do, because again, we do something here that's not done anywhere else in the country. And it puts Canton in the national spotlight for, a week and a half or 2 week time period. And it shows people what a great place that Canton really is, a place to live and to be able to call home.
Mm-hmm. So be a little patient as you see all these license plates from other places and they don't know our one-way things.
Sure.
And we'll extend a little grace in that way.
Yes, absolutely.
You've been doing this for 29 years?
This is year 29 for
Talk
me.
to me about the history of it, because I'm remembering watching enshrinements as we stood under the highway and looked up onto the steps of the hall, and now, of course, that's in the stadium. And
it is.
How things have changed.
It's amazing how it's grown. When it first started back in 1963, there were 4 or 5 events that took place, the enshrinement, the football game. There was a dinner dance. There was a fashion show luncheon.
For the wives.
Sure, for the wives.
Yes.
While their husbands were rehearsing the enshrinement,
right.
They wanted the wives to have something to do. So they did the fashion show.
Yes.
Interesting thing about the fashion show, you talk about making things happen and doing what you need to do to make things. In the first fashion show, money was a bit of an issue. So the centerpieces on the tables of the fashion show were flowers that the committee people went around to local funeral homes and acquired flowers from funeral homes, and that's how they made the centerpieces on the tables at the first fashion show.
And it was lovely.
And it was.
Well,
so you
that's
think about,
ingenuity.
Yes.
Goodness.
You make it happen, whatever you have to do. But it's grown from that to, a national event with the televising of the enshrinement, of the game, of the Gold Jacket dinner. It truly is not just a Canton event, but it's a nationwide event that we get to host right here.
I always thought it was so crazy and hilarious when we would have the breakfast, the mayor's breakfast, the fashion show luncheon, and then the Gold Jacket dinner that night. All on the same day, all with completely different decorations, completely different color schemes, and, of course, a different outfit for every single one of those. How did it take us that long to not do that anymore? That was just amazing.
And even now, it's something to see, as a volunteer, once the fashion show's over.
Yeah,
we have a little bit of downtime, not a lot, until the dinner starts.
Yeah, it still flips.
But a couple years ago, I sat up in the stands and I just took some time to watch the transition over from when people leave from the fashion show to get it ready for, and all that has to happen in a short period of time. And
it's amazing.
It has with the dinner being televised on NFL Network, it has to be at a certain time, and it's just amazing to watch how that turnover happens.
Well, you've had all those decades to get ready for NFL Network because you know how to do it. It's clockwork. It is phenomenal to see tablecloths coming off and new ones going on.
Absolutely.
And just incredible. The food, let's talk about the food at these meals because it's always incredible. And when you're feeding this many people, how do you do it?
There's a food committee. That's one of the, kind of the behind-the-scenes committee that I mentioned a bit ago. There's a food committee that they're responsible for, choosing what the entrees are going to be at the different events. They choose the caterers. They have what I think is one of the best opportunities. If they have a tasting where they have to taste the dinner, the caterers
Okay,
prepare
that'd be the
food.
committee to be
That would
on.
be the one to be on. Dessert tasting they do to see what they're going to do, and they oversee that whole process of the cooking of the food and making sure that tables are served at the right time and on time, and the food looks the way that it's supposed to look and it's presented the way it's supposed to be presented. That committee, they do a tremendous job with that down there.
Again, amazing. And it's all, if it's supposed to be hot, it is. If it's supposed to be cold, it is.
Yes.
Y'all get served. Y'all get ushered into the big room, and y'all get to see everything going on. It is, again, just down to a science.
It is.
Highlights over the last 29 years? What stands out to you?
Boy, I don't know. There's been a lot of things. Like I said, I started off with hospitality committee through the Hall of Fame, and we were called linebackers at that time. Now that sounds impressive, but there have been a lot of things. But if I had to pick one, I would have to say that I'm a Steelers fan.
Oh,
I know.
we were
I know.
getting
That's-
along
I know,
so well, Doug.
And in 2015, when Jerome Bettis was inducted into the Hall, I was I was on the enshrinement committee, and I had the opportunity to serve as his bust carrier for the day and the evening when he, was inducted, and at the enshrinement and his after party afterwards, and got to meet he and his brother and a lot of the former Steeler Hall of Famers were at the after party, and it was I'd have to say that's probably the highlight of what I've had, other than the privilege to be able to serve as general chairman.
Yes.
There have been in the history of the festival, I'm number 59.
Wow.
General chairman, and it's something that I never expected. It was never something that I like. Well, this is something
That
I
wasn't
think I
a goal?
deserve. Well, I always looked up to and respected and admired the people who were the general chairperson.
Sure.
But it was never one of those cases where I thought, well, I've done this for 27 years and I think this is something I deserve. It was never that. It was, if the opportunity were ever presented to me, I would take it, and I would consider it an extreme honor and a privilege to be able to do that. And
Well, thank you for doing it.
Thank you. It's been a fun year, and the next couple of weeks are going to be even more so.
Extra fun. You're
Yes.
going to make some wonderful memories. You
Yes.
talk about those that are being enshrined in the hall belonging to a forever family. So are those general chairmans. They get together occasionally.
They
And
do. It
you're in
was-
a very small club as well.
Yeah, there's at the end of in early October we have a dinner for the committee chairpersons, and last year the past general chairmen were all invited to come to that as well.
Neat.
And it really was neat to be able to, when you're general chairman alumni. So after this year's festival's over, you get a green sport coat, a green jacket, and to see the past general chairmen who were at that event, with their green jacket and carrying that with pride, and so that was kind of neat to be able to see all those people together.
Very
again.
cool. Well, if you can't get one on the Masters Tour, you might as well get one by
get one right
yes,
here.
that's right. Remind us how we can get tickets for everything.
If you log on to the Enshrinement Festival website, which is www.profutballhofef.com, there's a link to tickets there, and it will link to tickets for Hall of Fame events on that website as well.
We will see you at enshrinement festivities. Doug Freilich, thank you so much for all that you're doing in our community.
Thank you.